The evil within, the consequence. Chapter 1. Kidman glanced nervously over her shoulder as she hurried down the neon-lit street, sticking to the shadows as much as possible. The data drive containing evidence exposing Mobius mind control plans felt like it was burning a hole in her pocket. She knew they'd be searching relentlessly for her now that she'd escaped STEM, but the drive gave her a vital bargaining chip. Ducking into a grime-covered alleyway, Kidman tapped the communicator implanted behind her ear. "Sebastian, it's me. Are you there?" Only static answered. With a frustrated sigh, she leaned against the alley wall, the cold brick pressing into her back. The city almost seemed to be against her too, the hovering billboards and automated surveillance, drones extensions of Mobius reach. She missed the familiar comfort of her police department and home back in Crimson City. But returning there was too dangerous for now. Mobius had infiltrated too deeply, their agents potentially around every corner. She was truly on her own. A sudden drone buzz overhead made Kidman cringe. She held her breath as it passed by, continuing its pre-programmed patrol. The brief moment of panic was a reminder that she needed to be more careful. Staying hidden was her best chance of figuring out a way to get the data into the right hands. Exiting the alley, Kidman tapped the surly dossier agent she encountered nights back at the precinct for information. He set up a meeting at a hole-in-the-wall restaurant downtown. The place was deserted when she arrived, only the agent sitting alone in a dingy booth. The data drive weighed heavy in her pocket. Could she trust him? "Have a seat, Kidman," he said gruffly, glancing around. "I don't have long. They know you escaped. The administrators are furious." Kidman gulped, but stood her ground. "I have something they want." She slid the data drive across the table. "Evidence of their mind control plans. Help me use it to bring them down." The agent pocketed the drive, face betraying nothing. But then he sighed. "You always were a righteous one, Kidman. I'll see what I can do." She left the restaurant torn between hope and doubt. Had she just sealed her fate? Or set Mobius' destruction in motion? Only time would tell. For now, she blended into the crowds, just another faceless resident of the sprawling metropolis. Chapter 2. A week after passing off the data drive, Kidman considered relocating to another city. Staying on familiar streets made her feel exposed. But uprooting also meant disrupting potential coordination with allies, slim as they seemed now. Her contact hadn't surfaced. As night fell, Kidman retreated to her motel room on the outskirts of town. She took precautions, but exhaustion eventually won out over anxiousness as she slipped into a fitful sleep. At some point, awareness pricked at her consciousness. A feeling of not being alone. Her eyes shot open to see a dark silhouette standing over her. She sprang up, grabbing for the knife stashed under her pillow. "Stand down, Kidman," came a vaguely familiar raspy voice. As her eyes adjusted, the figure's deathly pale, cracked skin and sunken eyes became visible. Shock jolted through her. "Ruvik?" His resurrection after their battle in STEM shouldn't have been possible. Yet here he was, flesh and blood. "Surprised to see me?" he asked with a cold smirk. "I told you, I can never die, not fully." Kidman's grip on the knife tightened. "What the hell are you doing here?" Ruvik's icy gaze bored into her, as if peering into her very soul. "I followed you out, and I believe we now share a common enemy." Mobius. Of course he would want revenge against them too. But that didn't mean she could trust him. "I'm going to contact the authorities," she started, inching towards the fallen. In a flash, Ruvik was there, clamping her wrist in an iron grip. "Don't be foolish. You think they'll believe you over Mobius? There's only one way to destroy them, and I can provide it." Despite herself, Kidman hesitated. She needed allies, especially ones with Ruvik's intellect. And he had his own reasons to want Mobius demolished. "We want the same thing," Ruvik pressed. "And I can give Mobius what they deserve." His words dripped with malice. Kidman wrenched her arm away. "Say I did agree. What's in it for you?" Ruvik's pale lips curled into a self-satisfied smirk. "Revenge, justice, call it what you will, I simply want what's rightfully mine." His smug superiority irritated her, but she had no better options. "All right, Ruvik, I'm listening." Ruvik's eyes gleamed with dark anticipation. "Here is how we will bring their world crumbling down." Chapter 3. Ruvik directed Kidman to a secret facility on the outskirts of town. As she snuck through concrete tunnels leading deep underground, warnings screamed in her mind. This was almost certainly a Mobius black site. What twisted plan did Ruvik have? Heavy steel doors parted, revealing a sterile area filled with strange machinery hooked to EEG monitors and beds. This must be where subjects were plugged into STEM. Ruvik gestured to one of the beds. "I've created a special STEM world for our purposes. Lie down." Kidman bristled with distrust. "What are you going to do to me in there?" "I need you to unlock certain memories I've stored," Ruvik replied cryptically. "I ensured Mobius could never access them, but someone with your mental prowess may succeed." Kidman hesitated. She had little choice but to play along. For now. She settled onto the bed as Ruvik initiated the STEM connection process. "Relax your mind," he intoned. "Let your thoughts drift." As the startup sequence completed, Kidman's vision blurred, then refocused on a hellish landscape of gnarled trees and perpetual bloom. She recognized this realm all too well. Ruvik's own demented corner of STEM. Pulling out her gun, she did a quick survey for immediate threats. But the grotesque nightmare creatures she'd encountered before were curiously absent. In the distance, a crumbling Gothic mansion rose above the trees like a watchtower. That had to be her objective. "All right, Ruvik," she muttered. "Let's get this over with." The hike through writhing underbrush and clawing branches set Kidman further on edge. She avoided the humanoid bodies impaled on spikes and crucifixes. Wicked things hid in the shadows here. Reaching the imposing mansion gates, Kidman slipped inside. The entrance foyer was pitch black, but she pressed on using her phone's flashlight. Portraits of a scowling aristocratic family lined the walls. "Ruvik," she called out. "I'm here." Only her echoing voice answered. The search for whatever memories Ruvik wanted her to retrieve began. She hoped to finish the eerie task quickly. Down each darkened hallway she investigated, foul things scuttled and shrieked in the periphery. Kidman caught glimpses of shambling, twitching abominations. This place was wrong, stained by Ruvik's twisted psyche. Finally, Kidman located what appeared to be Ruvik's old study. Bookcases filled with arcane texts lined the walls, along with anatomical sketches and equations scrawled on blackboards. Just as she moved to the large desk, Icy hands grasped her shoulders from behind. She spun, lashing out at her attacker, only to find no one there. But the room's temperature had noticeably chilled. She peered closer at the desk's contents. A leather journal emblazoned with Ruvik's broken brain emblem lay open atop it. Chapter 4. Kidman reached hesitantly for the journal. As her fingers brushed the worn cover, a force like she'd been struck by a train hurled her back against the study wall. She collapsed in a heap, disoriented. Maniacal laughter echoed around her. Did you really think it would be that easy? A pale, wraith-like figure flickered into existence before her. It appeared vaguely humanoid, garbed in ornate religious vestments. But beneath its hood, only darkness filled the space where its face should have been. "Ruvik, what have you done?" Kidman demanded, scrambling away from the apparition. It cocked its head quizzically. "I am the Keeper, and you have many secrets to share, Kidman." Its voice was melodic yet unsettling. She needed to get out of this room fast. But each time she tried fleeing, the Keeper materialized, blocking her exit. "We know so much about you," it continued conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "The pain Mobius inflicted on you, the regret you feel over that boy, Leslie." "Stop it," Kidman yelled, anger overcoming fear. "You don't know anything about me or my regrets. Now let me go." The Keeper simply shook its head. "Oh, but we do. We've seen your twisted memories, Kidman, the things buried in your subconscious." It gestured, and the study dissolved into inky black clouds. When the darkness receded, Kidman found herself chained to a gurney in an operating room. Her old mentor from Mobius approached, scalpel glinting cruelly in his hands. "No, please," Kidman cried, straining at her bonds helplessly as the blade descended. But it was just a vision. The scene evaporated, returning them to the mansion. Kidman collapsed, breathing hard. The Keeper stood over her, gloating. "You can't hide from your past forever. I will break you, as Mobius broke you before." Clenching her jaw against the threat, Kidman rose shakily to her feet. She couldn't allow this monster power over her. Escaping this nightmare had to happen on her terms, not its. As the Keeper continued its relentless psychological assault, Kidman steeled herself. She refused to capitulate. Its head games had already destroyed her once. Never again. This thing didn't know her. And she was done being afraid. Chapter 5. Days passed in STEM as Kidman persevered against the Keeper's manipulations. She studied its behavior during their encounters, learning to anticipate its tricks. It wanted something from her still, some need she might exploit. Kidman decided to confront it directly. The next time the Keeper manifested, she addressed it calmly. "You seem to think I have information locked away somehow. Why don't we discuss this rationally?" The Keeper floated silently, as if considering the offer. Finally, it replied, "My task is to unlock what Ruvik requires. If you surrender it willingly, I need not be cruel." Interesting. Her cooperation seemed important to its agenda. "What exactly does Ruvik want?" she asked. "The location of research files he hid from Mobius before they imprisoned him in STEM," the Keeper answered. "Release the location voluntarily, and you are free to go." Kidman almost laughed, as if she believed that, but she nodded thoughtfully. "I'll try to remember, just don't torment me anymore." "Very well," the Keeper replied. "But don't attempt deception, I will know." With that, it vanished. Kidman thought back to her exploration of the mansion before the keeper attacked. Ruvik's study held clues, she was certain of it. Returning there, she carefully paged through the journal left on Ruvik's desk. Complex equations and philosophical ramblings filled the pages, but no obvious research data location. Frustrated, Kidman tossed the journal down. As she did, a slip of paper fluttered out from between the pages. A room number was scribbled on it, 158. Rushing upstairs, Kidman quickly located room 158. Unlike the rest of the decrepit mansion, this room appeared freshly used, books and papers neatly arranged. Jackpot. Now to get what she needed before the keeper caught on. Kidman scanned through the documents rapidly. Most were scientific notes far beyond her expertise. But she found files mentioning something called Project Illuminatus that seemed important. She stuffed them into her pack for later examination. Pages rustled behind her. Whirling around, she saw the keeper materializing, woefully too soon. Time to flee. Grabbing the rest of the files, Kidman sprinted for the room's window and crashed through it in a shower of glass. She tumbled to the ground, grunting at the impact, but forced herself up. As the keeper shrieked furiously above, Kidman escaped into the surrounding woods. Finally, she had leverage against Ruvik. Chapter 6. Heart-pounding, Kidman fled through the nightmarish stem woods with Ruvik's research files. She needed an exit point before the keeper rallied the other entities against her. A crumbling mausoleum ahead promised potential shelter. Kidman slipped inside, using a heavy coffin lid to barricade the door. In the musty interior, she carefully examined the Project Illuminatus files obtained from Ruvik's hidden room. Many sections were heavily redacted, but she grasped enough. The project detailed Ruvik's neuroscience discoveries, experiments on the human brain, controlling fears and memories. This must be the research Mobius forced him to pursue, then stole for themselves. No wonder Ruvik wanted it back. Footsteps scraped outside. Kidman quickly reposited the files and readied her knife. But instead of the keeper, the mausoleum door creaked open to reveal shuffling, moaning undead creatures. She recoiled instinctively. Damn it, she should have known the commotion would attract them. Lashing out with the knife, Kidman fought past the first few, but more climbed from the burial plots, blank eyes hungry for living flesh. Their moans summoned more shambling forms. With dawning dread, Kidman realized she was surrounded. No way she could take them all. She was considering making a suicidal run for it when flames erupted around her, immolating the creatures. They shrieked horribly, collapsing into charred husks. Kidman shielded her face from the heat. Look who finally decided to have some fun without me. Heart leaping to her throat, Kidman spun to see a familiar spectral figure. Leslie. The young man's ghost smiled sadly. You shouldn't be here, this place. It isn't good for you. Kidman stepped towards her lost ward. Leslie, I'm so sorry. He shook his head, interrupting her apology. There's no time for regrets. You need to leave now. With that, Leslie waved his hand, energy pulsing outwards. The walls of the mausoleum dissolved, replaced by a blinding white portal. Freedom from STEM. Kidman wanted to speak to Leslie more, but he was right. She had what she needed now. With a last look of gratitude, Kidman turned and stepped into the light. Time to give Ruvik a taste of his own deception. Chapter 7. Kidman gasped, awake on the Mobius facility bed, disconnecting from the STEM system. Nearby, Ruvik watched impatiently. "The research location now," he demanded. When she didn't immediately respond, his pale face twisted with anger. He seized her roughly by the shoulders. "Perhaps the Keeper didn't properly motivate you." In a lightning-quick motion, Kidman grabbed the pistol hidden under the bed and aimed it at Ruvik. "Don't even think about it." Ruvik froze, eyes widening fractionally in surprise. Kidman kept the gun barrel steadily trained on him. "Project Illuminatus, right?" she asked coldly. "Your sick experiments on controlling human thought and memory, is that what you wanted back so badly?" Ruvik composed himself, though his jaw clenched at having his plan turned against him. "You have no idea the power you now meddle with," he warned. Kidman's voice was steel. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm walking out of here with these files. You're not going to stop me. I'd suggest not following." For several tense moments, Ruvik only stared malevolently back, hatred smoldering in his eyes. But eventually he stepped aside, wordlessly allowing Kidman to back towards the exit. Once in the clear, she broke into a run. Emerging above ground, Kidman hesitated. She couldn't go to the authorities or back home. That left one risky option: Sebastian. The last she knew, Sebastian was recovering, his memories of Mobius restored. But finding the turncoat cop would be difficult. She required help. Approaching a hacker contact from her Mobius days proved fruitful. He reluctantly tracked Sebastian's location to a safe house in a remote coastal town. Traveling there, Kidman did surveillance to confirm it was really him. Finally, she slipped inside the house one night while Sebastian slept. Clapping a hand over his mouth, she hissed, "Wake up, it's me." Sebastian awoke violently, flipping her onto the floor and drawing his gun before recognizing her. "Kidman?" he asked incredulously. She nodded. "We don't have much time. I have a hard drive with data that can unravel Mobius." Sebastian's expression grew alert as she explained her escape from STEM and Ruvik's hidden research. "This project, Illuminatus, you found. It could be just what we need to bring Mobius down," he said. Kidman handed him the hard drive. "Use it well. I'm going back on the run before they pick up my trail. I'll contact you when I can." Sebastian clutched her shoulder. "Stay safe out there, partner." With their tentative alliance renewed, Kidman disappeared into the night. She'd fulfilled the bargain's terms by retrieving Ruvik's research. Now it was in capable hands. Sebastian quickly set to work decrypting the Project Illuminatus files, fascinated by the revelations within about Mobius' inner workings, particularly their mind control programs. Kidman had come through big time. Combining the research data with the evidence she'd originally stolen provided a detailed blueprint of Mobius operations and key vulnerabilities. With this knowledge, Sebastian could strategically leak information to sow dissent in the ranks, turning Mobius against itself. By releasing edited snippets of documents anonymously online, Sebastian fueled suspicion of Mobius among the public too. Their clandestine activities were dragged into the light. Questions arose demanding accountability. Sebastian also reached out to disgruntled Mobius employees, stoking resentment towards the controlling administrators. Rebellion stirred from within. The shadowy monolith had grown complacent in its power, but no longer. Kidman's brave actions had broken the seal. Everything was escalating precisely according to plan. The seeds were sown for Mobius destruction. Now Sebastian needed only to help fan the flames. Soon this corrupt organization would burn. He couldn't wait to see the looks on the administrators' smug faces when it all came crashing down upon them at last. Sebastian smiled grimly, lost in thought. The pieces were perfectly positioned on the board. Checkmate was close at hand. Chapter 8. In an isolated cabin, Sebastian monitored the chaos unfolding within Mobius. The administrators were scrambling desperately to contain the damage as their secrets leaked. Employees abandoned ship. Investigations loomed. Sebastian received an encrypted communication from Kidman with an update on her efforts. She'd been busy herself hacking Mobius accounts, funneling money into Sebastian's hands for safekeeping, identifying weak points in their infrastructure. Together, they were keeping the heat on full blast. "Whatever you're doing, it's working," Sebastian told her. "Mobius is going off the rails. We've got them on the run." Even Cyrus, the Mobius superior who recruited Sebastian, couldn't maintain his composure anymore. He demanded Sebastian meet him alone. Sensing an opportunity, Sebastian agreed. They met outside an abandoned warehouse, fittingly like a mobster rendezvous. Cyrus looked haggard, eyes bloodshot. "I hope you're satisfied, Castellanos. You and that double agent have laid waste to all we built." Sebastian crossed his arms. "Don't pretend Mobius was anything noble, but there's still time to make this right." Cyrus shook his head bitterly. "The administrators want retribution. They know you're behind this." "Then help me take them down for good," Sebastian pressed. "You see now what they really are. Together we can end their corruption." Conflict played across Cyrus's face. Sebastian held his breath. Finally, Cyrus nodded slowly. "Very well, I will provide you all I can access, but pray this ensures the safety of my family." They struck the pact. Cyrus would feed intelligence on the administrators' plans, enabling Sebastian to counter them. In return, Sebastian would shield Cyrus' wife and daughter from harm when the axe fell. In an encrypted data dump, Cyrus exposed the administrators' locations, security details, innermost secrets. The breadth of information surprised Sebastian. "With this, we can surgically strike each administrator's operation," he told Kidman later. "They'll have nowhere left to hide." She agreed. "Cut enough heads off this Hydra, and Mobius collapses for good." The noose tightened. Morale within Mobius continued nosediving. Key financial accounts were frozen. Unflattering stories dominated headlines. Their test subjects revolted. Sebastian and Kidman were judo flipping Mobius' immense strength against itself. Cyrus provided ammunition, desperate to survive the coming firestorm. Everything was lined up for the final, fatal push. Soon it would be checkmate. But first, Sebastian had some personal loose ends to tie up with the administrators who had manipulated him and so many others. That reckoning would be sweet. The monsters running Mobius deserved far worse than their mercifully quick ends. But this was about justice, not vengeance. With Kidman and now Cyrus' help, Sebastian would ensure Mobius' machinery of exploitation and control was dismantled for good. Chapter 9. With Mobius reeling toward collapse, Kidman considered resurfacing from hiding. But eliminating the organization wouldn't erase the threat entirely. Too many who supported Mobius' agenda remained entrenched in power. So she disappeared deeper, utilizing skills honed from years undercover to slip right off the grid. Legally, she became a ghost. New forged documents provided her anonymity. She rotated through a network of discreet safe houses in remote towns and cities, never staying anywhere long, constantly watchful for tales. At one gray little apartment, Kidman streamed news reports tracking Mobius unraveling. Rogue former agent was blamed rather than her by name, some small relief. With luck, she could avoid becoming a media spectacle. Sebastian sent updates too when possible. The campaign he and Cyrus orchestrated was proving devastating. Kidman watched once untouchable Mobius leaders reduced to frightened fugitives. It was cathartic, but bittersweet too. Despite accomplishing her mission, peace eluded Kidman. In sleep, visions of the things she had endured in STEM plagued her. The administrator's gloating face, her mentor's cold cruelties, the keeper's relentless torments. Physically, she was free, but psychologically Mobius still haunted her. Would she ever be fully rid of them? She wanted badly to confide in Sebastian about the horrors faced in Ruvik's nightmare world. But opening up had never been easy for her. For now, she channeled the simmering trauma into her continuing crusade, digging up whatever dirt she could find on Mobius-affiliated companies and officials, tracking their money trails and web of influential connections. Anything to further destabilize the rotting edifice. When old instincts towards self-isolation surfaced, Kidman resisted. She even called Sebastian a few times, cautiously opening up about her experiences little by little. It helped ease the sting of long-buried memories somewhat. She was done allowing Mobius to dictate how she processed pain. Kidman knew the struggle to untangle herself from Mobius was far from over. Healing would happen on her terms, on her own time. When nightmares of the past struck, she reminded herself how far she had come. Mobius' hold over her was broken. She was finally free to shape a new identity and purpose. And that purpose would remain uprooting evil, no matter where it festered. Other organizations akin to Mobius were still out there. One day she would surface from the shadows to bring them all to light too. For now, though, her work from the dark continued. One relentless, methodical step at a time. Chapter 10. Sebastian stared out the office window at the city skyline, reflecting on recent events. The collapse of Mobius following his and Kidman's coordinated blows had sent shockwaves through the establishment. Investigations and lawsuits persisted in rooting out those complicit. Amidst the turmoil, Sebastian had quietly retired from the police force with Cyrus' help. The danger to his family had passed, but too many friends there were now lost, including his partner Joseph. Bittersweet memories. Kidman planned to lie low a while longer before resurfacing to give her deposition on Mobius activities. Sebastian couldn't blame her for disappearing again so soon. Experiencing that world of Ruvik's couldn't have been easy. He could relate to carrying trauma. A faint squeak drew Sebastian's gaze to the office door. There stood little Lily, his daughter. His heart clenched. After so long believing her dead, getting Lily back had been a miracle. She was still shy and hesitant around him, though. He cursed himself for all the lost time they could have had. "Hey, sweetheart, did you need something?" he asked gently. Lily glanced downward. "I had a bad dream. Can I stay here?" Sebastian softened. Of course. He picked Lily up and together they sat on the small couch. Eventually she spoke about her nightmare of being trapped and forgotten. Sebastian listened quietly, letting her get the fear out. It's okay to be scared sometimes, he said after. But I'll always find you, Lily. That nightmare can't hurt you now. She nodded, looking slightly less burdened. Hesitantly, she leaned into his chest. Sebastian wrapped his arms around his little girl, heart surging with tenderness and sorrow. There was still much healing needed, but he was grateful for this chance. Across the country, Kidman switched motel rooms again, vowing this would be the last for a while. The news of Mobius' total collapse had reached her. It was really over. Sebastian had let her know Cyrus and his family were safely in hiding too. She sat on the lumpy mattress, overcome by emotion. They had actually done it. Of course, a sliver of doubt lingered that this was all some elaborate hoax. That anxiety might never fully fade. But she had to try believing in change. The memory stick Sebastian had sent sat on the nightstand, containing files on those Mobius wronged. Victims like her. Seeing justice served was bittersweet, but their stories strengthened her resolve further. This was why she had endured. There would be difficult days still. Coping with trauma was a jagged path, not linear. But for once, Kidman felt confident enough to travel it on her own terms without hiding. And maybe, just maybe, the long-buried parts of herself she'd been forced to smother could now emerge stronger than ever, like a dormant seed finally flowering under the sun. She pictured Mobius burning to ash for good. From the fertile soil left behind, hopefully something better could grow. The end.